New York City, a cold December morning. The air was still thick with mist, and Manhattan's main streets bustled as they did every day. People hurried through the intersections, rushing past blinking traffic lights under the gray sky, caught up in the relentless rhythm of life. But no one knew that in less than an hour, a shocking murder would unfold in the heart of the city. A crime that would shake the American finance and healthcare industries to their core. Catch this for 6:45 a.m., December 4th, 2024. Brian Thompson, 54 years old, CEO of UnitedHealthcare, one of the largest health insurance corporations in the U.S., stepped out of the Hilton Midtown Hotel. He had just finished a meeting with key business partners and was heading to his company's headquarters on 6th Avenue. Thompson had no bodyguards. He had never thought he needed a security team like politicians or Hollywood celebrities. He believed New York was safe, and despite his power in the financial world, he preferred blending into the crowd, moving freely without unwanted attention. But what he didn't know was that, just meters away, a shadow was watching his every move. A man in a black coat, wearing a beanie pulled low over his face, a mask covering his mouth, gloves concealing his hands. He moved silently, his gaze locked onto his target. And then, 4 gunshots shattered the city's morning rush. Bang, 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 bang. Screams erupted. Some people ran. Others stood frozen in shock. Brian Thompson staggered. Pain twisted his face in an instant. His body collapsed onto the cold pavement, his expensive coat rapidly soaking in blood, dark red spreading across the white snow. The killer didn't stop. He turned and walked away briskly, disappearing into a nearby alley as the panicked crowd swarmed the scene. Less than 3 minutes later, police arrived. Ambulances screeched through the streets, red lights flashing against the wet asphalt, reflecting off towering skyscrapers. Paramedics rushed to save him, but it was too late. Brian Thompson was dead. News of the assassination spread like wildfire. A powerful CEO gunned down in broad daylight in the middle of a crowded street. And now, one question gripped the public. Who killed him, and why? New York has never been short on crime. But a broad daylight assassination in the heart of Manhattan? That was something entirely different. This was no random attack. This was a calculated execution, swift, cold, and leaving no chance for the victim to survive. As soon as Brian Thompson's body was removed, the NYPD crime scene unit began combing through every tiny piece of evidence. On the pavement, they found 4 shell casings, all from a Glock 19, a widely available handgun, easily bought and sold on the black market. But there was one unusual detail. 3 out of the 4 bullets had words engraved on the brass casing. Delay, deny, I depose. These words were no coincidence. The media immediately jumped on the theory. Could this be a deliberate message referencing UnitedHealthcare's policies? The company had long been criticized for denying thousands of claims, pushing patients into financial ruin, and in some cases even costing them their lives by refusing coverage for critical treatments. But if that was the motive, who would dare carry out such a bold and public assassination? Witnesses gave their accounts. Several described the shooter as calm, composed, and methodical, like someone who had planned this for a long time. Surveillance footage backed them up. The killer didn't flee in panic after firing. He walked briskly, but not in a rush, turning into an alley behind the Hilton Midtown. And there he made his move. He grabbed a city bike, an electric rental bicycle, and vanished from the camera's view. A perfect crime. No fingerprints, no direct eyewitnesses, no identifiable evidence left behind. But there was one thing the killer couldn't erase. Investigators found a security camera 2 blocks away that captured footage of the suspect before the murder. Despite his efforts to conceal his face, the mask, the beanie, one detail betrayed him. The coat. A black jacket with a small logo on the left sleeve, the emblem of a sportswear store in Brooklyn. Detectives immediately tracked down the store, and there they found a customer list. Only 12 people had purchased that exact jacket in the last 2 months, and one name stood out on the list, Luigi Mangione. The New York police now had a name, Luigi Mangione. But that didn't necessarily mean he was the killer. The next step in the investigation was to uncover the motive. Why was Brian Thompson, the CEO of a major health insurance corporation, assassinated in such a brazen manner? Who had a reason to want him dead? Detectives quickly began combing through the victim's personal and professional life, and within 24 hours, they had already uncovered a long list of potential enemies. UnitedHealthcare was no small company. It was a giant in the American healthcare insurance industry, controlling billions of dollars every year. And anyone at the helm of such a corporation would undoubtedly have rivals or even enemies. Police began digging into recent lawsuits against UnitedHealthcare. One case immediately stood out. A major hospital in California had sued Brian Thompson's company for denying millions of dollars in insurance claims for patients. Leading the lawsuit was Dr. Richard Langley, a renowned cardiac surgeon who had been a vocal critic of UnitedHealthcare's policies. Detectives interviewed Langley. He didn't seem surprised when he heard about the assassination. "I didn't like Brian Thompson," he admitted, "but killing him, that's not my way." Langley had a solid alibi. He was attending a medical conference in Chicago at the time of the murder. Investigators crossed him off the suspect list. But that only deepened the question: who was really behind this killing? The police couldn't ignore the possibility that this wasn't a murder for business reasons, but a personal act of revenge. Brian Thompson had made decisions that affected millions of people, and not everyone survived those decisions. Some insurance denials had led directly to patient deaths, leaving families devastated. One particular case stood out. 3 months ago, a woman named Emily Carter had taken her own life after UnitedHealthcare denied coverage for her cancer surgery. Her husband, Michael Carter, had publicly blamed Brian Thompson, calling him a murderer in a suit on social media. Michael Carter became a key suspect. But when police arrived at his home, they found a broken man, devastated by grief. He had a rock-solid alibi. He hadn't left his house on the day of the murder. Another dead end. But among the long list of suspects, one name still stood out: Luigi Mangione. He wasn't a businessman. He wasn't a former patient denied insurance. So who was he? Luigi Mangione, 26 years old. He had once been a brilliant software engineer working for a major tech company, but his life took a drastic turn after a family tragedy. His mother had been diagnosed with cancer. She had desperately applied for insurance coverage for chemotherapy, but UnitedHealthcare denied her request. She died 3 months after receiving the rejection letter. From that moment on, Luigi Mangione disappeared from social networks. He quit his job, cut off contact with friends, and had no fixed address. And now his name surfaced on the customer list of a store that sold the exact jacket worn by the killer. Had he murdered Brian Thompson in an act of revenge? Police immediately began tracking him. But there was one big problem. Luigi Mangione had no permanent residence. He was a ghost in the heart of New York, and if they wanted to catch him, the police had to race against time. Mangione had erased all traces of himself, becoming nothing more than a ghost in the city. That could only mean one thing: he had been planning this murder for a long time. Police started with their only lead: the black jacket with the Brooklyn store logo. They went to the store, checked the customer list, and found Mangione's purchase receipt. But he hadn't used a credit card. He had paid in cash. Detectives reviewed the store's security footage, and the moment they played it, a crucial detail emerged. He wasn't alone. Another man was with him. This person wore a gray hoodie, a baseball cap, and stayed close to Mangione. They spoke quietly in the store, and for a brief second, the camera caught his face when he adjusted his cap. Police ran facial recognition through the criminal database. Within minutes, they had a match. His name was Daniel Ross, a convicted arms dealer arrested in Texas in 2019 for illegal weapons trafficking. Had Ross supplied Mangione with the Glock 19 used in the murder? Or was he a part of the entire assassination plan? Aside from the store footage, Detectives had another key piece of evidence: the city bike the killer had used to flee after shooting Brian Thompson. City Bike was New York's public bike sharing system, and every bike had a unique serial number. Police tracked the rental record for the bike used in the escape. It had been rented under a fake name, but the killer made a mistake. Even with a false identity, the bike's GPS tracker remained active, and the GPS revealed its final location. The bike had been docked at a station 2.5 miles from the crime scene. That station was near a small motel in Lower Manhattan. Detectives immediately checked the guest records at the motel, and there they found a suspicious booking. LM, a reservation made the night before the murder. Was LM short for Luigi Mangione? 4 a.m., December 9th, 2024. Only 5 days after the assassination, police surrounded the motel in Lower Manhattan. SWAT teams were deployed, sealing off the building. No one was allowed in or out. Inside, a light was still on in a second-floor room. Officers knocked on the door. No response. They called the phone number registered under Mangione's name. No answer. A long, tense silence. Then, a sudden noise from inside. A signal was given. The door was breached. The tactical team stormed in. But the room was empty. No sign of Luigi Mangione. No sign of anyone. Just a laptop, still open. The screen flickered with a single message. "I'm already one step ahead." Mangione's disappearance stunned investigators. How had he escaped just before they arrived? Two possibilities. One, he had been watching police movements and fled just in time. Two, he had an accomplice who warned him in advance. Was Daniel Ross involved, or was there another player behind the scenes? Police needed a breakthrough, and they got one. A single fingerprint found on the laptop screen in the motel room. It belonged to Luigi Mangione. He had been here, but now he was gone. The hunt continued, and police knew time was running out. Luigi Mangione had escaped. But the police knew he couldn't run forever. They had his fingerprints. They had security footage. They had his connection to Daniel Ross, the arms dealer arrested in 2019. Most importantly, they had discovered a crucial detail. He wasn't acting alone. As soon as the NYPD raided Mangione's motel room, a data analyst at headquarters flagged a suspicious call made to a phone registered under a fake name. The call was placed just 15 minutes before police stormed the motel, which meant someone had warned him. And the call had come from a gas station outside Philadelphia. If Mangione was fleeing New York, where was he heading next? The police launched a massive manhunt. They monitored traffic cameras, tracked GPS signals, and flagged financial transactions linked to Daniel Ross. Within 24 hours, they had a major breakthrough. Daniel Ross had rented a car in New Jersey on the morning of December 8, one day before police raided Mangione's motel room. The car's final stop? A small roadside motel in Altoona, Pennsylvania. December 10th, 3 a.m. The SWAT team surrounded the motel in Altoona. This time, they wouldn't give Mangione a chance to escape. With a single command, the door was breached. Mangione tried to climb out the window, but police were waiting. He was taken down immediately. In his backpack, officers found a Glock 19, later confirmed to be the exact same gun that killed Brian Thompson. Inside the motel room, they found something even more disturbing: a long list of names, handwritten notes, and plans for future attacks. Mangione wasn't just targeting Brian Thompson. He had more names on his list: insurance executives, politicians, corporate CEOs. He wasn't done killing, but now his plan was over. NYPD interrogation room. Mangione showed no fear. He sat across from the detectives, expressionless, unshaken. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then a detective slid a photograph across the table. Brian Thompson lying in the snow, blood soaking through his coat. Mangione looked at it. Then he smiled. "I did exactly what needed to be done." Police pressed him for answers, and for the first time since his capture, Mangione calmly told them the truth. He hadn't killed Brian Thompson for money, not for revenge, not for personal hatred. He killed him to send a message. The American healthcare system is a scam. He let my mother die, just like thousands of others. I simply took justice into my own hands. No remorse, no hesitation, just pure conviction in every word. The police understood Mangione was no random killer. He was a fanatic, a man who truly believed he was doing the right thing. But no matter his reasons, he had committed murder. And now he would have to pay the price. New York, December 12th, 2024. News of Luigi Mangione's arrest dominated headlines and television broadcasts. A former software engineer had become a cold-blooded killer, assassinating one of the most powerful CEOs in America. A crime that shocked the nation not only for its bold execution, but for the chilling motive behind it. Mangione did not kill Brian Thompson for money or personal revenge. He killed him to avenge his mother. He believed this was justice. June 2025, the trial begins. The trial of Luigi Mangione took place in New York City. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, lawyers, activists, and most notably, families who had suffered under the healthcare system. They weren't there to support a murderer. They were there because they understood what he had lost. The prosecutor laid out irrefutable evidence. Security cameras captured him stalking Brian Thompson before pulling the trigger. His fingerprints were found on the laptop screen in his motel room. The Glock 19 in his backpack was a ballistic match to the murder weapon. The prosecutor ended his statement with a cold, unwavering declaration: no matter the reason, murder is never justice. On the defense side, a different story was told. They did not argue that Mangione was innocent. Instead, they wanted the jury to understand why he did it. They recounted case after case of patients denied coverage, people who died because they couldn't afford treatment. They spoke about Mangione's mother, who had a chance to survive, but the system abandoned her. Then they let Mangione speak for himself. And in a courtroom so silent it felt frozen in time, he spoke. "I have no regrets. I only wish I had done it sooner." That sentence shook America. July 20th, 2025, the verdict. The jury reached a verdict. Luigi Mangione was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Justice had been served, yet no one left the courtroom satisfied, because in some way, everyone understood why this happened. Mangione had done something wrong. But if the healthcare system hadn't failed him first, maybe this crime would have never happened at all. Chesh. Immediately after the trial, America was divided. One side condemned the killer, calling him a dangerous criminal, a lone wolf terrorist who had taken it upon himself to decide who deserved to live and who should die. The other side saw him as a martyr, a man who had lost everything to injustice and sought revenge in the only way he knew how. A wave of protests erupted against the health insurance industry. Demonstrators flooded the streets demanding sweeping reforms to the healthcare system. UnitedHealthcare, Brian Thompson's company, came under federal investigation. Their questionable insurance policies, which had denied coverage to thousands, were now exposed to the public. But no matter how fierce the debate, one truth remained unchanged. Brian Thompson was dead. Luigi Mangione would spend the rest of his life in prison. And the American healthcare system continued to function just as it always had. No heroes, no victors. Just a horrifying crime, and a question that no one could answer. How many more cases like this will happen in the future?